Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second season of the College to CEO Executive Speaker Series. My name is Aditya Shok. Everybody calls me Adi, and it is my pleasure to have all of you back in what is now our second semester in this speaker series called the College to CEO Speaker Series. And just a quick refresher or a reminder to all of you that have been with us over the past semester as well. This is essentially a lineup of distinguished leaders and C-suite executives, industry experts, currently working in the corporate world, and we host them in speaker sessions over the semester. For us students to have the opportunity to directly interact with and network with these leaders and learn about the focus is on learning about their journey from how they transitioned from being a college student just like us to the leader they are today. What did they do? How did they do it? What were some of the biggest challenges in their path, or what were some of the mistakes they made and things like that? Because whatever they did, however they did it, it worked. They are now at the top of the corporate ladder. And it's going to be an exciting semester again. We anticipate to have 5 to 6 speakers this semester. And starting off today with us to kick off the semester speaker series is Mark Bruckman, CEO of Segula Technologies. And it is my pleasure to invite him to our session today.
Thanks, Adi. Nice to meet everyone. Nice to be online with everybody.
All right. So to start off, Mark, I would love, we as students would love to hear a little bit about your bio, your background, and your role at Segula Technologies and what Segula Technologies is all about.
Sure. Yeah, I know I provided you a little write-up bio, but I guess I'll expand upon that and maybe be more personable about where I came from, who I am, and then we'll get into what I do today. So yeah, Mark Bruckman, I born and raised in the Detroit area. Went to high school here. All my family is from this area, and growing up, I'm the youngest of a bigger family, about 7 kids. Not about 7 kids. As a younger person in high school, coming out of high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I followed the guidelines or followed the path of my older brother and went into mechanical engineering. So, I spent time at University of Michigan in Dearborn campus as an engineer. So my first couple of years, I struggled, to be honest with everybody. I really struggled transitioning from high school into college, the whole college campus life, the atmosphere, just everything about it. Even though University of Michigan Dearborn was a smaller campus, it still was tremendously different from the high school experience that I had. So I guess as we get into this, and I'll just throw out other things, Adi, as part of it, is some of the challenges and some of the issues that I had as a student is, those first 2 years I really struggled. My GPA was really down. I just wasn't sure that college was the right thing for me. And, and a lot of it, I think, was maturity and growing up and just getting involved in different aspects of things. So I stuck it out and, finished my degree in probably normal time, about, 4.5 years, give or take, with all the labs and all the other engineering credits that I had. And, respectfully around a 2.5, 2.6. So, I mean, I wasn't a star student for sure. I did enjoy going to class and studying, but I was not always the best test taker. And I can tell you, I was not always the best paper writer. But, the college really prepares you for working with different people, working with the labs, getting to network different people, and really getting involved in what you're going to be doing in your next role. So when I graduated, it was 1990. Some of you probably weren't even around at that time, but a lot of you weren't around at that time. And basically, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. It was a little down economic times, and I was just wanted to get out of school and start earning some money and start, getting on my own and being a young adult and just get out in there and get started. So the one thing I guess as part of the bio is as I had several different jobs as a younger person. From the time I graduated probably till the time I was about 28 or 29 years old, I've probably had 3 or 4 different jobs in that time period. And I moved around looking for what I thought was the best fit for me. Some of them were really highly technical engineering type roles. Some of them were more sales or commercial related roles. And I gravitated to more towards the sales and commercial aspects of the business. And I think a lot of that is personality driven. For me, I'm not what I would call an over analytical person, but I also do like the facts. I do like the data. I do like that part of it, but I get more, I guess, energy out of the people skills and working with people, working with teams and solving problems. And it sometimes when you get in these highly technical roles, they really get you focused on just certain things, certain aspects. I mean, which is fine for lots of people. I have really good friends of mine who are really technical experts in that area, but it wasn't for me. So as we continue about my bio and talking about my past a little bit, Adi, I just would add those things. And then, I eventually wound up getting a job or applying for a job and securing a job at Robert Bosch. And Bosch is a very large company. I'm sure most of you have heard about Bosch, Robert Bosch. I started there in 2000 and I left there in 2018. And I was determined at Bosch to not jump jobs again. I wanted to get some stability. I wanted to build a career, build some, experience in a role. And Bosch was a perfect company for that. After about 5 years in the role that I was hired in, Bosch being a big company has opportunities to move on. So I applied for different roles within Bosch and, moved a couple of different divisions. Fortunately for me, I did a good enough job and was I guess was recognized and was put into management training programs, which is a big thing I would strongly recommend. As you get into your companies, as you get into your roles outside of your college and you get into your career, understand the processes and the policies within any large company. Most of them have management training programs. They'll have accelerated type programs where you get additional training. And some of that training, well, not some of that training, a lot of that training I've taken has really paid off in what I do today. It's a lot about people management, operations management, working in teams, working with different peoples with different personalities. Bosch is a big company. They're really involved in training people about how to work within a team that has a bunch of different personalities. And all you students right now at Michigan State, I'm sure you could look around, look at your lab partners, look at your lab groups, look at your roommates. There are probably 8 different personalities within your group of 8 friends. And everybody is treated a little bit differently. One person is probably more anal and more, A personality. Some people are more laid back and more cool. You deal with it today, and it doesn't change a whole lot in the workplace, except it becomes more professional. People are there trying to make money. They want to get ahead, and you have to be able to work with that type of personalities, different personalities, and that type of style in your organizations. So you're spending a long time at Bosch. I went to 3 different groups, 3 different divisions. Went from sales, program management into business unit management in 3 different fields of, I guess, technical areas for Bosch. Chassis, brakes, controls, ABS, foundation components. Got into electromechanical drives, which are like smaller motors that drive fans, blower motors, windshield wipers, window lift motors, stuff like that. And then the last couple of years, I was responsible for the North American powertrain electrification group at Bosch, which in 2016 was not like it is today. Electrification has exploded over the last, 3 years. But it was fun and being part of that at Bosch, and it really gave me, a desire to further that and grow that in my personal growth and my career. After 18 years, I really enjoyed working for Bosch. It was a great company. All the people were great. I just felt that at that point in time in my career, after 18 years, I had more that I wanted to give, more that I wanted to, I guess, learn and develop than really Bosch was able to offer me. You know, I was fairly topped out in North America. So I started looking at other opportunities and, you know, eventually moved from Bosch to a company called Hitachi Metals that was starting a brand new group to do basically EV technologies. You know, Hitachi Metals at the time was a very large materials company. They provided rare earth magnets, soft magnetic material, nanocrystalline type materials, clad metals, copper, wire, you name it, anything that would go into either a battery, maybe an EV high traction motor, or power electronics, you know, onboard chargers or DC-DCs. It was a very cool job because I got to talk to a lot of different engineers with regards to materials, material properties, visited many different plants, both in the US and in Japan. And it was really a, you know, the technical background and then, you know, the ability to, I guess, how understand how products and materials fit into the bigger scheme of things like a car or a system or something like that really was very beneficial. Um, However, that job was going to be basically a repeating role. It was a commercial strategy job. Investment wasn't being made. And I was actively being recruited by an engineering service provider called AVL. AVL is heavily powertrain based company, including EV powertrains and batteries. That was the first time I became the title of a vice president role, and I had a fairly large group in business development and sales at AVL that I had to, I guess, work with, uh, further develop the processes and communication. There were some clear statements made to me during the interview process before I was hired that the AVL, I guess, the team building, the mentality had to be, I guess, not corrected, but it needed improvement. And they were looking for someone with strong leadership skills, with good process orientations, uh, program management type skills, and that's, you know, that's basically how I was selected for that role. Um, that was before a year and a half or so, a year before COVID hit. Uh, COVID hit in, you know, basically March, what, 13th, 14th-ish timeframe of 2020. Everybody stopped spending, all the OEMs, a lot of the tier ones stopped spending money. AVL being a service provider, relying on companies to spend money for engineering services towards new projects, with projects being slowed down and basically stopped, AVL made some cutbacks. So in theory, I was cut from AVL. But the day I was cut from AVL, Segula Technologies was also recruiting me for the role I'm in today. And, you know, to make a, you know, so obviously it's a longer story, I interviewed for a while with many, many different people. It was probably the most intense interview process I've ever had. And it, you know, if you think about the role that they were looking for, you know, Segula being, I guess let me talk about Segula Technologies for a second. So Segula Technologies is similar to AVL, where it is an engineering service providing company. You know, we do all sorts of work in the US. We get involved in seating and interior systems. We get involved in transmissions and gearboxes and powertrains. We also do a lot of geometric dimensional intolerancing. We do styling and industrial design. It's a very wide variety of technical aspects that we have at Segula in the US. And then you take Segula from a global point of view. So Segula Technologies is a French-based company, headquartered in Paris, privately owned. It's almost $1 billion company globally. And in the US, I'm about $11-12 million. So there is just a significant amount of expertise and skill set that, excuse me, that Segula can pull on from a global point of view. And we can develop scenarios where we do some front office work for customers, and we can, you know, support with resources that we have in different parts of the world, Romania, Tunisia, Hungary, China, India, France, Germany, of course. And it's such a global network that Segula has. It's a really dynamic company to work for, and it's tell you, it's very invigorating to be in a business development role in a company like Segula Technologies that is just trying to grow in the US. And it's it's a lot of entrepreneurial type freedom. It's nervous at times for sure, because, we do rely on business from customers, and we have to, get new business all the time. Big projects don't just happen by chance. Sometimes they do. But it's I wouldn't say it's overly stressful, but I tell you, it's very exciting, and it's always invigorating to try to work for that new deal. So getting back to the interview process at Segula. So if you think about the role that they offered me, going from a vice president role at AVL of business development, having a large Bosch experience with program management and commercial, so operations and commercial. Segula was looking for someone to run the US office, and also they were pulling the Canadian and Mexican offices underneath that position, which I am in today. So starting out, it was definitely, they wanted to make sure that they got the decision right. I wanted to make sure I got the decision right. The one thing that we can talk about as we go, in this discussion today, is you have as much say as the company has in the hiring process. You don't ever forget that. You have to make sure that it's right for you, that the fit is right for you, the culture is right for you, the job is right for you, the long-term growth potential is right for you, as much as the companies are looking for that right person too. And it's always a interesting thing, because you feel pressure. You want to get a job, you want to make some money, you want to start earning an income, so you can have your own apartment, have a car, have whatever you want to try to afford, either a new bike or go golfing or something like that. You always have to take that. And some of the advice I'll give you today is, don't feel pressured to take the first job that's offered to you. Be selective, make sure that's what you want to do and what fits your needs. I can tell you from my personal experience, I took some jobs in my first couple of years out of college that, if you talk about mistakes, I probably shouldn't have taken those jobs. I took them because they paid a little bit more money. I thought it was going to be something good for me. And quickly, 3 months into the job, I wish I had never left my previous job. So you have to be really selective, in my opinion, about what you're looking for, and I would map that all out in the pre-discussions, but I think we can get into that with some of the Q&A. So that's kind of the bio. What else, Addie? You wanted some challenges or some other items?
We can get into it. I just want to say, I haven't asked you a single question yet, but you just gave us such valuable pieces of advice. I think that was pretty awesome. Like, for example, I know, we give students the opportunity to also, put in some of the questions that they wanted to ask while registering for the event as well. And many of them were actually interested in finding out, how you find the right company, or, even as a CEO, while you're working to outsource your work, or what you can't do everything. So when you're working with third-party companies, in getting the job done, how do you find the right company and things like that? And you were like, just what you said about, you don't have to find you don't have to agree to the first one, and you have as much say while applying for, or getting a job, as much as they do. I think those were big gems, huge piece of advice for all of us attending. So thank you. But I was a lot of valuable information, and I'm going to try and take it step by step with a bunch of questions that I have for you, and slowly transport you back into college before you graduated. Sure. But first, one thing that engineers in general, but I want to say all students have, is imposter syndrome. We don't know. We just feel like we're not good enough, or we need to have the best GPA, and we have to be the best at everything that we do. I want to talk to you about what you shared about your GPA. You openly shared what your GPA was and said that it wasn't the best GPA. Yet you're the head of a huge company. You by yourself are handling over $10 million in a company that is valuated over $1 billion. Can you talk to us about how important or what role your GPA played in your life, both in college and after? And, talk to us about your opinion on the trade-off between a very high GPA and other extracurricular activities.
It's I'll do my best. That's not the easiest question, but I can tell you. So I just to continue on the complete transparency point of view. So my first semester, I had I think 3 C's and 2 D's. I think it was like a 1.685, and I literally had a heart to heart with my brother and was ready to drop out of college. And they said we talked me into one more semester, and I said okay, I'll get through it. I think I ended up the second semester with a couple B's. And see, I think I raised up to maybe 2.7, 2.8, give or take, or whatever. Coming out of high school, I was National Honor Society. So, I mean, school was not difficult for me. High school was easy. I mean, I didn't have to study. It would just, boom, it came to me. Getting into college, a whole different ballgame. So I think getting to that point, talking about the low GPA, I realized that, I'm not going to be the best test taker, the best student ever in college. So, but I did have to work hard to get to get my GPA up to that point. And I think, talking about GPA, and I had friends that were just very, very brilliant people. I mean, 4.0 through college, on to Harvard, on to Cal Polytech. I mean, people that I consider some of the smartest people I've ever met. And I always felt like I was inferior to them because they had high GPAs. But there's things that I have that I've had to work at, and some of them are natural abilities for sure. Communication skills, the ability to present yourself, to get points across, to listen. Two things that I've keep in my mind for the last 15 years. There's two phrases I like to use, and if you want definitions, I can give you my definitions, but you can look them up online as well. But active listening and respectful curiosity are two things that I've always felt strongly about. And if you think about, your question, Adi, I always felt that I had to work harder because my GPA wasn't as good. So I always felt I was a little inferior. I think it gave me some big time humbleness. It took away some of my ego coming out of high school. And it really made me realize that, I really have to work hard to get what I need to do to be a good student. And I think that work ethic carried from college into my first jobs because I always felt that I had to prove myself. Someone was always sitting there looking at my personnel file going, well, this guy didn't have a great GPA. But they say, look how hard he works. Look all the good jobs he does. Look at everything else he does. So I always felt like I had to kind of make up for that lack of GPA in college. And whether that was true or not, I felt that it drove me to work a little bit harder in the job.
And going off of that, like you said, your GPA wasn't the best, but there were certain qualities that you mentioned that you believe helped you grow and be good at what you do. And some of those that I caught on to while you were saying it was, an eye for problem solving and good communication and, critical thinking and things like that. Could you talk a little bit more about where and how those helped you in your career and how you demonstrated to employers, or recruiters where, the GPA is so in your face, in your resume all the time. How did you do a good job at demonstrating this and, showing it off to recruiters?
It's, I guess how I did it is basically I would give them specific examples of items in my past. And I'm sure I could pull some out today, but you always prepare for the interview, any discussion for that matter, with the customer, internal customer, external customer, whatever. And when I was coming out of college, I had to prepare for interviews, and you had to have good examples of why you could do the job that you're being asked or you're interviewing for. And it's doing your research on the company, understanding what they do, understanding what questions you have for them, being prepared for that, making sure that when you read the job description, either you have questions about the job description that you want to ask during the interview, and or you read the job description and you don't have questions about it, but you have some more detailed questions of maybe some more finer details of the job description that aren't written down, that you could only get by researching the company. And today, researching companies is a lot easier than it was, back when I was coming out of college. You have the internet, you can Google anything you want. and you show your preparation, and then you have to express yourself also. You don't want to be scripted, you don't want to be mechanical, you want to be yourself, but you also want to make sure you're prepared, and you express to your potential employer that you can do the job. You can listen, you can communicate with people, you can work together within the team. You can do things on your own as well. You have the ability to solve problems, to make decisions and work with people. And it's sometimes when you're younger, I know I had this issue, I was a little bit more arrogant, and I always felt that people weren't making the right decisions. I'd be more argumentative, and that sometimes can get your reputation of being not easy to work with. And as you work with other people, you realize, again, the personality point comes into, like, you have to be able to work with a lot of different people and solve problems with a lot of different people. And I guess in short, Eddie, you just have to have examples and show a prospective employee what you have to offer, give them reasons why, or tell them how you would do certain things, and just be prepared for the discussions and interview process.
That was interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, something that I also have noticed while speaking to recruiters and with all of the previous speakers as well, the value for experiences and qualities like problem solving and teamwork and good communication always outweighs classes and going through a curriculum and getting a good grade, just a good grade in your classes. And no disrespect, that's really important, but that's just something I've been hearing a lot from all of the speakers as well. I promise it's not an excuse for my bad GPA, but it's interesting to see every or hear your thoughts on that, especially. Next thing I want to ask you is, what was your major in college? Why did you pick it? Was that always the plan, and now, would you rather it be a different major than what you did, and why?
It's a great question, and I think I alluded to it at the intro part, but I was mechanical. I went to mechanical engineering, and I really, coming out of high school, I had no real set plan. That's what my older brother did. I just kind of followed in his footsteps. Math was always somewhat easy for me at high school. It seemed like the most logical thing to do, and my brother was an engineer, so I just went right down that path. Being out of college for a while, I've thought about it. I think I would have done things a little differently. I think I would have done more maybe business related with the heavy finance role. I see before, during my time at Bosch, in other companies, a lot of people that, grew within organizations that got higher up were people that had really good financial skills. They could understand how business worked. They could make decisions that would, impact the business results, which is obviously what any either shareholder or private owner is looking to do. And I'd have to think about that. I'd either not do engineering and do like a heavy finance or business related background, or I would do engineering, but then take a lot more finance and more business related courses. I took the bare minimum, prereqs in business and art history and geography and psychology and all those fun stuff that us engineers typically don't like to take. And yeah, I would have done it maybe slightly different, but can't complain right now too much.
Okay. Just because you wanted to change your, looking back, you would have rather done it a little differently. I want to ask you, coming off of college, was your current role your goal, the path you always wanted to take? Because coming out of college, students usually have goals, or it's perfectly all right to not know what to do, but some of us have goals, and it can really be a train wreck when things don't go according to plan. I want to hear your thoughts on, what was your goal coming out of college, and did it really work that way?
coming out of college. So I guess I can't say that my goal was to be the CEO or a VP or anything, right? I can tell you the one thing though that was absolutely clear is I did want to lead a team. I wanted to be part of an organization and lead that organization and, help develop the team and work towards the goals together. And, I think that's something that I've always had from even when I was a young kid, just being competitive in sports and stuff like that. I was, always wanted to be the guy picking the teams and putting the teams together and then taking the teams and molding those teams. And I didn't have to be the guy shouting in your face, but I wanted to be that guy that just got everybody together and made sure we all had a clear message and clear path. And, I'm not the big rah-rah guy, but I wanted to be coming out of college. I wanted to be that guy, the guy that would help lead, develop the teams and put the teams in the right spot to succeed. And whether that was working for a CEO, working for a VP, but still being heavily responsible for that sort of stuff, I didn't really have any clear goal after that. It was just, I wanted to be the leader and developer of a team, basically.
Okay. And, out of curiosity, um, were there any specific experiences or, something that happened in college or immediately after that influenced or heavily influenced your thought process into leading a team? I want to ask, going off of that, do you think leaders are born or do you think leaders are made?
I think it's a little bit of, well, to take your last question first, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there are people who have some natural born leadership skills and abilities. They have just natural charisma. They see things really clearly in their view. Whether their view is right or wrong, that's not the question. The question is, can they communicate their view and get people to support their view and what their mission is? I think there's a lot of people that are just naturally born that way. I think there are people that are born with leadership skills, leadership ability, and then they have to work on it and develop it further. And then, I'm sorry, the first part of your question was coming out, was there any event? I wouldn't say there's one event in college. I think it's for me, it started again before college, in high school, being highly competitive in sporting events and doing multiple sports and being part of teams and wanted to be the captain of the team or this, right? I think I always had that innate feeling. And then as I got into college, as we got into lab groups, I always wanted to be, in the lab group. I didn't always have to be the leader of the lab group, but I wanted to be one of the guys that was looked to as a go-to person of the lab group. And even, in professional organizations, like just like SAE, which we were part of it in college. I didn't want to be the head of SAE on the campus, but I wanted to be up there, either like the VP or sergeant of arms, or I can't remember all the different positions, but I wanted to be part of the committee that would help create direction for the organization at the campus. And I think those things that to go back to your last question, I think I was born with some desires to be more of a leadership person, but naturally I can tell you I am not what I would consider this typical, highly personality type A person to be a head of an organization. I'm very empathetic. I'm very soft-hearted sometimes. And honestly speaking, I probably could be a lot tougher. But it's I like to lead people through my way and my path. And I try to develop and collaborate with people and get them all to move along the same path without having to dictate and order them to. I'm just not a big believer of that.
Okay. And looking back at college, were there any experiences or training, formal or informal, and anything like that that shaped the leader in you? What sort of experiences as students do we look for in college? We may not realize it now, and I'm pretty sure looking back now, you probably think that a certain experience taught you a lot more than you thought as when you were a student. Was there anything like that for you?
I wouldn't say there's one event that sticks out more than other things. I mean, you know, again, University of Michigan Dearborn is quite a bit different than Michigan State. I mean, it's a commuter type campus. Not a lot of people lived on campus, but there's still a very strong bond of the people that were there during the day, in the classes. And I think, the being from a smaller high school and being one of the few people from my high school at this campus, I had to learn to make a lot of friends. And, I had friends that I developed from classes. I had friends I developed through sports. And then, I had friends that, other social activities, like, I was a DJ at the radio station, stuff like that. And I think all those events, all those experiences at college, me not just sitting in the shell, but, maybe trying to expand and do something different, meet new people, go play intramural basketball when I don't know anybody there, just show up at the gym one day and get into it. Join the campus radio station. I had no friends there. I wanted to do it and try it. I mean, I think trying new experiences and getting out of your comfort zone, as uncomfortable as it can be, are important for all of us. We have to push ourselves. I can tell you, I'm not an openly gregarious person. I'm not the person that will walk up to you and start talking to you, out of nowhere. I'm very reserved, very shy at times, and usually don't look for the spotlight. So, but you have to push yourself to grow, in my opinion.
Okay. That is definitely exciting and interesting to hear, because everything that you said so far, everything that you shared, I think is sort of like hope for all students, because it stands against what a typical, a stereotypical leader or a type A person sounds like, and which is amazing for me, because it just shows me as well that everything unique about me, or that I see different from a typical leader, is sort of uniqueness that I bring to the table that can be valued as a leader, right? And to everybody tuned in today, it just shows that anybody can be a leader. I know you did say, and I completely agree, that some people are just born with certain capabilities, certain abilities that help them become a better leader. But everyday activities, just like going and playing intramural basketball with random people, can be a huge lesson on becoming a good leader. So leaders are made is something that I completely believe in, and it was good to see you share your thoughts on that.
Sure. And
moving on
just
to the
real quick,
next thing.
Eddie, on that point, just so I don't lose the thought of it. You're absolutely right. Leaders, you can have natural abilities, but leaders can be made. And I can tell you, you always have to be working at your ability of being a leader. You always have to be thinking about what works best for you, what works best for the team. You can't make everybody happy all the time. And I think even though you have the abilities, you have to work hard at being a leader. You have to, research, study, look for references, and just think before you speak.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And the next thing that I want to ask you is, coming out of college, you already shared that looking back at it, you already see it as a mistake that, you didn't pick the right jobs, or, the way you were picking jobs. Can you elaborate a little more on that, and what you see as really mistakes in your early career? And is there anything that you regret?
I don't really regret many things from a career point of view. Obviously, there's some personal things I regret, but this is not about that. So, yeah, I don't really regret anything. I think looking back at them, there's something from every job and every position I can take and have taken with me to where I am today. I think that's the one thing, not to get off on the engineering tangent and see if, maybe I would have been finance or commercial. Once you're an engineer, you're always an engineer. You can never get that taken away from you. There's always that technical ability, that technical background, that you're going to look at things sometimes with a different view than someone with a business or finance degree. So I can tell you that that alone has provided so much value to me in all my jobs. And I don't regret any of the jobs I've had. I try to take good points out of them, leave the bad points behind, and then build upon the good points and look to use those as I go forward in my career today. And it's amazing in the job I have today, which is really cool. As an engineering service provider, I can tell you there's aspects of every job I've ever had in my background that I come across: seats, plastics, powertrains, chassis components, you name it. It's really electronics, software. It's really kind of cool. So I guess I don't regret any of the jobs I've had, Addie, and I always try to bring the positive things out of those jobs forward with me into what I do today.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your early jobs. Why did you feel like, you felt the need to switch jobs, or that it wasn't the right fit for you? How are you making those decisions?
I have to really think. It's just tough to put myself in the same mindset, being 24, 25 years old. But a lot of the decisions were based on what I thought people wanted me to do. A lot of decisions were made on, well, I could it's a lot different today, but an extra $3,000 or $4,000 per year in this job. And, and some of them were because I wanted more faster, if that makes sense. I wanted to be in charge much faster than probably my career should have allowed, right? Or would have allowed, meaning I was probably a little arrogant on what I could do early on. And I just felt that I needed to keep changing jobs to keep growing. And that wasn't necessarily the situation, but you can still grow within your current job. After a while, like I said, when I got into Bosch, I told myself, I'm going to stay here for a while and build upon this. And Bosch allotted me a lot of opportunity to go into different divisions, different jobs. So that kind of quelled my desire to keep looking for something new and different. Because it was all about growth. I mean, it's all about kind of growth as well. So.
Okay, and while you were transitioning from start from that point to where you are today, what were some of the values, or traits that you that you valued the most, or that you considered were absolutely vital for your progress and for your growth?
For me, I can only tell you what I value, of course. I always, as I matured in the workspace and as I grew up into taking over, I always thought when I was younger, I could manage people way better than that person could manage people. But then once you start doing the management of people, it's a whole different ballgame. And, I think the things that work for best for me is I'm very open. I am always try to make time for the team members to talk to them. I have a high level of empathy, which some people in my past have told me that's not a good trait to have, which if you read all the books and read a lot of literature today, they say empathy is one of the most important things to have as a leader. And then honesty and sincerity have always been things that I've always, lived by. My word, my personal brand that I offer, it's not just the job that I'm doing, but you have me doing the job. And the fact that I'm doing that job, I'm going to do it the best I can and bring everything I can to that job. And you're not just coming to the job, but you're coming to me as well. And when I give you my word, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I tell you I'm going to get it done by Tuesday, I'm going to try to get it done by Tuesday. But if Tuesday comes, I will let you know before Tuesday comes, or like Tuesday morning, hey, I'm just not going to get it done. Sorry. I tried everything I can, but I'm going to give you a new date. And it's about accountability, and just being go-to person, being dependable. Those are some of the key things.
And completely respectable values. And I think, that just works for not just in being a leader, but in everyday's life as to, just to be a better person every day. And that's how we can, be better people and be better leaders. So that is super cool. And I'm sure it worked.
Well, likability
Going
is,
off that, and this might,
the other thing too is likability. Don't underestimate being likable.
okay. My next question is sort of related to this, but I'm switching perspectives on you. This was when you were looking at yourself for your personal growth. Now, when you look at your employees and you look at potential new employees offer promotions within the company, what are some of the characteristics that you seek in them?
So you get into that personality. Everybody's different, right? But the things that I would see, because I can't expect everybody to be the same type person. It's not going to be. It's just not possible, right? So what I would look for is people are honest, people who are dependable, people I can trust to get the job done, and people to communicate with me, to be open with me, not to have a hidden agenda, not to give me half truths, not to kind of cover up things. Bad news first is one of the other things I always strive to live by. Let's get the bad news out there. If we got a problem, let's talk about it and let's fix it. There's nothing that, well, there's no problems that should be hidden. Everything should be out in the open. So those are the things I would look for in someone that I'm looking to hire. And they could be a type A personality. They could be, way different than me, but if they're dependable and they have good communication skills and they can basically, communicate with me and be, I guess, an ally or asset or whatever you want to call it. Just, someone to go to, not, those are things I would look for.
And just out of curiosity, do you think that you as an employee coming out of college ticked off everything that you seek now in an employee, and how long did it take for you to build or check off everything?
It's a very good question, because I think I haven't even thought about that before, but the way you asked it, I think what I look for in the people that I would be looking to hire are the things that I strive to be as an employee when I was younger. I'd want to be that go-to person. I want to be dependable. I want to be someone you can trust. I want to be someone that can get the job done when you ask them to get the job done. Yeah, it's interesting that you asked it like that. I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, same things I look for, the things that I strive to be when I was younger.
Yeah, and honestly, my line of questioning was like that because I was just curious to see, and one is definitely, and you put it exactly the way I was thinking, and maybe I couldn't have put it into words better than you, is that each one of us in our unique ways, as we grow to be a leader, what we're looking from our teammates, or what we're looking from our teammates, our team, is essentially the kind of leader we want to be someday. And that just gives each of us motivation to work on. And the other thing is, not all of us are perfect coming out of college. I personally
Not even
also,
close. Not even close, guys.
I probably beat you on that, but coming out of college, none of us are nearly perfect. And it's the other thing is, it's not too late. College, or and this is especially for the juniors and seniors in here today, we're not too late. The first few jobs, or even if we start now, the experiences that we build from today can be life altering. Be a new, it's sort of like an epiphany where everything changes after that. Today can be the starting point, right? And that's really what I wanted to hear from you. The leader you are today, the things that you value most is what you built through your career, and you didn't have to be perfect at the beginning.
No, and when we spoke, I think a week and a half ago, I thought about that, and I guess the one thing I was going to mention in this discussion, that yeah, there is no secret sauce. There is nothing. You can take a course on how to be a great leader. I mean, you can take courses, but a lot of it depends on you. Like you said, you're a unique person, so there's no secret sauce.
Fair enough. I see a lot of questions in the chat in Q&A. So, before jumping into those, I will just ask you one more thing, and this is more about your current role in being a CEO, because most of the attendees today and myself really have no clue essentially of working in the corporate industry as a leader. I mean, most of us might have done internships at Max or worked like that, but how is it really to be an organizational leader, whether as a part of a C-suite, a CEO, or even a program management or project management leader? And an extension to that, after you talk about what it is, like your roles and responsibilities, can you justify a CEO's paycheck? You know, I've heard a lot about the salary disparity between the people who actually do the work versus a CEO who's sitting in a cabin and doing the work. I have very controversial thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear what you think about a CEO's roles and responsibilities and why they're paid.
Yep. So let's set the record straight. Segula is not a very large company. So being a CEO for Segula in the US, I'm not getting paid like other CEOs that you see, like from Amazon, Facebook, Ford, you name it. I'm a very, very average working type person here. But I do think I don't think some of the salaries and bonuses that some of these leaders get are justifiable. It's really just a function of the business does good, they get huge amount of money, and then the people below them get a very, very small percentage of that bonus, right? If you read anything about Toyota, and I believe the culture is still the same at Toyota, I believe the CEO or the highest paid person in Toyota is only like 20 or 25 times higher than the lowest person at Toyota. I could be wrong with that fact, but I know Toyota is very, very clear on how their structure goes from a salary point of view. But I do think there is a certain, just not disparity, but I think there's a certain level of need to have a good leader, and it's important to pay that person accordingly, because they can create vision, they can create strategy, they can make sure the whole team is working effectively and highly functional towards the benefit of all of business. Help. And it's in my role today, it's I deal with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different things, from HR to real estate to finance to taxes to opening up banks and lines of credit to personnel related issues. You have to be a well-rounded individual and have a solid foundation to do the job that I do today. And I'm not going to say that no one can do my job, but I can tell you it's very important to have a functional leader in a company that you can depend upon to set direction and set vision and make sure the team's all on the same path towards success.
Okay. All right. So thank you for sharing that. What I will immediately do now, and God's going to help me with this, is promote some of the participants or questions as panelists, so they can we can give them the opportunity to unmute themselves and ask you the question. So first up, we have Andrew, who has a very interesting question. Andrew, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sorry, got to figure out how to use this. You guys hear me fine?
Yep, you're audible.
No problem.
So my question kind of comes more along the lines from an organizational point of view, and I guess your input into that organization. And my question is involving more or less the organizational culture, and how do you help promote an organizational culture that will continue, the quality and what you would expect from your company and the employees that work from it.
Yeah,
or for it.
that's a good question. Culture is a big. I didn't really mention that, but culture is a big part of my philosophy of any organization. So, not to get too long-winded, but you don't just come in and a culture is just automatically there. You have to build it, right? You can't just take one culture and immediately make it another culture. You have to slowly build the trust, build the, I guess, the values, and I guess you have to, I guess, walk, is it walk the talk and talk the walk? I can't remember, but you have to lead by example. And if I want a culture of collaboration, of transparency, of sharing, teamwork, making sure everybody's accountable for certain things, I have to start from my level to be accountable, to be transparent, and to be, collaborative with everybody, and listens to their decisions, listen to their input, and not just make decisions and not take anybody's input and say, well, thank you for your input, but this is a decision. I don't always know the best way to go. So you have to show by example, lead by example a little bit. And you also have to make it clear to the team, like I did when I took over. I told the team very clearly, I actually have a PowerPoint presentation that I prepared, tell them my expectations as a leader, what I expect from them as the team members, what my style is. I'm not a clock watcher. I'm not a micromanager. I expect, accountability, transparency, communication, honesty. I mean, you have to say it, you have to lead by example, and you have to keep practicing it every day.
Yeah, thank you. Question basically comes from, I'm currently a student in the EMBA program, and a lot of, what our first class is kind of discussing has a lot to do with, organizational behavior and management. And one of the current assignments that I'm actually working on, which kind of caught me off guard with actually speaking in this, is kind of analyzing my current company and trying to understand what can my company do to, I guess, improve on its organizational culture, its structure, to, in the long run, better its business strategy and the quality of the product supplied. So thank you for that.
No problem. Good luck with it.
Thank you, Andrew. And going off of that, again, flipping the perspective on you, Mark. Madison had to drop out just before this for another commitment that she had, but she asked, how do you recommend getting a good picture of a company culture?
That's a tough one because, you can't read about it. You can look at reviews, you can look at things online, right? There's references, but you always have to take a thing with a grain of salt. If someone was a bad worker and they were let go because they were a bad worker for cause or for whatever reason, they may not give a good review and they may, badmouth a company. You have to do the best you can through the interview process by asking culturally related questions, but not maybe come out and ask them point blank, what's your culture like? Work around it, research online as well as the other thing. It's really tough to get that culture, but you just have to do the best you can. It's not easy, and it's a question I can tell you I've asked in a lot of interviews. You can kind of get a feeling for how the structure of the interviews go, how people talk to you, what questions they ask. You can kind of build upon it a little bit, but it's not easy to tell what the culture is in any company.
To modify that question, adding my own thoughts to it. I completely agree with your thoughts on, the interview process is as much as, you hold, a decision process is whether the company that you're interviewing with is a right fit for you, just as much as they're seeing if you're a right fit for them. Walk us through, not just understanding the company culture, but how the company would be a right fit for us. How do we figure that out? Or how did you figure it out?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you're going to figure it out after you get hired, which is not when you want to figure it out. But the best thing you can do is, man, it's a really tough one. You just kind of, you have to study, you do some studying on how cultures are developed. Look at, ask how the process flows work in a company. Sometimes how a company is set up from a process orientation point of view can give you insights on how the culture works, right? If if it seems like there's a very disciplined and organized process, then the company's probably got some good organization and some good, bones to it. If the team in the interview cannot answer very specific process related questions that should be somewhat simplistic, or they give you, well, we just talked to this guy or we talked to that guy, then it may not be, it may be a company that's has a lot of personalities that drive it, and it's not a cultural diverse company that's looking to build teamwork and collaboration. So I mean, that's a really tough question. You just have to have your antenna up as best you can to see what's going on from a cultural point of view, and do the best you can to derive the cultural aspects from the interview process.
Fair enough. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is probably $1 million question, figuring out that, how do you figure out what company is right for you with all the companies interviewed? But, everything that you said definitely does make sense. Next up, we have Treasure, who has a question for you.
Yeah, hello, Mark. I wanted to ask, what did you do any internships? And if you did, do you think they played a big role on landing your first job out of college?
Yes. So I had an internship at the U.S. tank plant in Warren. Was a logistics. They had a logistics analyst type position. Honestly, I wouldn't say it played a big role for me I did start there right out of college, but I didn't stay there very long. I have friends that have had internships with other companies that they've started with and stayed with, people at Ford, people at Bosch, people at GM. I think I'd say internships are important. They give you a good feeling for the workforce, how corporate world works, some of the politics and other things that you'll see. And I think they are important to getting your first job out of college. I got to believe it was a lot easier for me to have experience in my resume coming out of college than not having any type professional experience outside of, being a waiter or this or that, coming out as a ME for the first time. So I think they're important, and I think they do have a big role to play in your first job out of college.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Next up, we have Nick.
Hello, my name is Nick. I just want to ask a question about competition, and that being like a business competition. When dealing with your competition, other companies and so forth, what is really the best path to either circumvent them or to, be able to make them less able to affect you and your business?
Yeah, so it's always a question at hand. Circumventing isn't really something, I guess it's probably not the best term. You just have to do the best you can to understand what your competition can be, right? So you have to, I hate to say it, sounds like such a cliche, but you have to know your competition. You have to know what their skill sets are, what they can do, what they can offer. And, you just have to do the best you can to try to develop the story of, what can they do that you can't do, or what can they do maybe cheaper than you can do, or what can they do better than you can do. And you almost have to war game it a little bit. It's you'll never circumvent it. There's always going to be competition out there. You just have to do your best you can to understand, as much as you can. So high level example, if understand their manufacturing structure, understand where they're located, understand maybe where their headquarters are, understand where their engineering resources are. Do they have overhead that they have to pay for from a different country, or they have a plant that's in a high cost location, like in maybe Chicago versus a plant that's maybe in Mexico? I mean, everything you have to take into account, and you can do that through internet. You can do that through networking, and you just have to do the best you can to develop the story of what your competition can do versus what you can do, and then make your best guess at how it all fits together with regards to the commercial proposal.
All right, thank you.
It is we're past 8 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of your time, Mark. So, thank you so much for your time today. And
I can, if Adi, if you want to have some more questions, I'm okay. I got nothing else going on tonight, so I can answer a couple more questions if you want.
we can go with a couple of questions that I also had, but I think that's all the questions we have from the audience or the participants
Okay.
today. One question that you sort of answered it, but it would be a good way to end the questioning is if 2021 CEO Mark Bruckman can offer one piece of advice to 20-year-old college freshman or sophomore Mark Bruckman, what would it be?
Oh. That's a tough one also. Just don't be as, I guess the biggest thing that I kind of look back on is I always had this feeling that I could do the job better than the next person. And that even to the managers I worked for, I had, I wouldn't say an overly level of arrogance, but I think I had enough arrogance where some of my bosses didn't always like me because I always felt that I could do a better job than them. And sometimes I may have showed it in certain discussions. But I was always respectful, but I think I would have been, as I matured, as I got into my later 20s, early 30s, and got into some other roles, I matured a little bit, softened a little bit, and realized that you kind of had to go along with the, hate to say politics, but you had to go along with the corporate game a little bit to get where you wanted to go sometimes, especially someone like me. I wasn't put in right off the bat with my GPA to be a manager training program right off from day one. So I had to work my way and prove my worth. And I think the arrogance part of it, I wouldn't say it didn't kill me, but probably hurt me a little bit, maybe 3-4 years longer than I wanted to be in certain roles that I got. So.
Now, again, challenging the stereotype of, softening up helped you become a better leader, a better person, and then, becoming more hard and brutal. So I think that's some pretty great advice. That's something that, not just that, everything that you shared, there's a lot of, gems of advice that you shared during the entire session that all of us can take home tonight and, work on ourselves. So thank you so much again, for spending this time with us and sharing your, personal insights, a lot of personal, experiences and things like that. So we are truly appreciative of, this, and, I'm sure it will, many of us will probably remember this, as we grow on to become better leaders. So thank you so much, Mark.
I hope it something you could pull something from my discussion. So any even if it's one thing, I'd be happy to have that. So no problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So, no, thanks for asking me to participate, Addie. I appreciate it, and it's interesting to me to look back on my past and share some of that with people that are still left on the phone. So hopefully it was helpful, and if anybody wants to reach out and ask me other questions via LinkedIn or whatnot, as I said, I try to make time for pretty much everybody if possible. So.
Perfect. The point of this series is also, as a networking opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing that. That completely slipped my mind. If we as students can reach out to you anywhere, I think LinkedIn, as you mentioned, would be a great platform. So if you could just put in your, I think Alp will do it, where they will put in your LinkedIn URL in the chat for our students to use. But again, for the students as well, this is a golden nugget for all of you to connect with Mark on LinkedIn and reach out to him directly for more of these gems of advice that he very generously shared with us today. So thank you all also for participating in today's session, and keep your eyes out for more information on our second session coming soon. Thank you so much. Have a great night.